If there's one workout you should never miss as a distance runner, it is the long run. This is the most important workout of the week, and it's the one that I recommend always prioritizing, no matter what's going on in your schedule, no matter what other workouts you happen to miss throughout the week. Whether you're training for a 5K, a full marathon, or anything in between, the long run is going to be essential to improving your performance over time. So let's take some time to decode the long run, from its benefits to all the different ways you can perform it and how to properly integrate it into your training based on your individual goals. Welcome to the VMAX Running Podcast, where the goal is to help you become a better runner than the one you were yesterday. I'm your host, Coach Brad, and if there's one workout that defines distance running, it has to be the long run. It's the cornerstone, the non-negotiable. But I've noticed that a lot of people are doing their long runs on autopilot, just kind of going out, doing the mileage, checking the box, and not really thinking about the strategy or the intention or the adaptation you're trying to get out of this very important workout. So today we're breaking down everything you need to know about the long run. We'll talk about why it's so important, what's actually happening in your body when you do it, and then we'll get into the different strategies you can use to target specific adaptations. By the end of this episode, you'll have a clear understanding of how to make your long runs work harder for you. All right, let's get into it. So let's start with the foundation. Why do I say that the long run is the most important workout of the week? The simple answer is this: nothing else you do in training replicates the specific demands of running for an extended period of time. You can do all the track workouts in the world, but if you haven't taught your body to sustain effort for 90 minutes or 2 hours or more, you're going to struggle in races. The long run is where endurance is built. But let me get a little more specific about what's actually happening inside your body during these runs, because once you understand the physiology, I think you'll appreciate why we prioritize them so much. When you run easy for extended periods, several critical adaptations start to occur. First, your body increases the density of capillaries in your muscles. You can think of capillaries as the tiny highways that deliver oxygen-rich blood to your working muscles. More capillaries means better oxygen delivery, which means you're able to maintain your pace with less effort. This takes time to develop, which is why we can't just rely on short, fast workouts. Second, your mitochondria multiply and become more efficient. Mitochondria, you've heard it time and time again, are the powerhouses of your cells. This is where aerobic energy production happens. More mitochondria means more capacity to convert fuel into energy aerobically, which is exactly what we want for distance running. This adaptation happens primarily when you're running at lower intensities for longer durations. Third, your heart literally gets stronger. Your stroke volume increases, meaning your heart pumps more blood with each beat. Over time, this means your heart doesn't have to work as hard to deliver the same amount of blood. You'll notice this when your easy pace starts feeling easier or when your resting heart rate starts to drop. These are signs that your cardiovascular system is becoming more efficient. One beat of your heart is pushing more blood out to your muscles than before. Fourth, and this is a big one, your body gets better at storing and using glycogen. Glycogen is your body's stored carbohydrate, basically, and it's the primary fuel used for running. Long runs teach your muscles to store more glycogen, so you have more fuel available on race day, and they also teach your body to spare some of that glycogen by becoming more efficient at burning fat for fuel. This metabolic efficiency is crucial for going the distance and avoiding that problem of hitting the wall during a race. And finally, there's the mental component. Long runs build confidence, and they teach you what it feels like to keep going when you're tired. They show you with very tangible evidence that you're capable of more than you may have thought. It creates this psychological resilience, and I would argue that that's just as important as the physical adaptations. Now, all of these changes happen because of one key principle: time on your feet. You need duration to trigger these adaptations. A hard 30-minute tempo run might make you feel tired, and it is giving you important adaptations, don't get me wrong, but it's not going to give you the same endurance benefits as a 90-minute steady effort. That's why the long run is non-negotiable if you want to improve as a distance runner. Okay, so we've covered the benefits, and now it's time to get tactical. We're going to cover a few different types of long runs, but before we get into anything too specialized, I want to nail down the fundamentals. So let's talk about the standard long run. This is your normal bread and butter long run, the one that should make up the majority of your long run training. So the pace for a standard long run should be conversational. If you're running with somebody, you should be able to hold a conversation without gasping. If you're running by yourself, you should feel like you could easily chat if you needed to. From a heart rate perspective, that's typically 70 to 80% of your max. In terms of effort, maybe a 5 or 6 out of 10. You're working, but it shouldn't feel hard. Now, in terms of duration, this is going to depend on where you are currently. So start where you are and build gradually over time. You may be starting with 60 minutes, 75 minutes. More experienced runners training for marathons might build to 2 or even 3 hours. The key is progression, typically adding no more than 10 to 15 minutes week to week. Don't make big jumps. Your body needs time to adapt. Here are some of the most common mistakes I see. First is going too fast. Runners feel good at the beginning, the pace feels comfortable, so they let it drift faster. And then by mile 10, they're just working too hard, and they're missing out on the aerobic development that a long run is supposed to provide. If you find yourself struggling in the last few miles, that means you probably started too fast. The second mistake is inconsistent pacing, speeding up in the middle and then fading at the end. We want a steady effort throughout. That's what teaches your body to maintain rhythm, which is exactly what you need on race day. Something to consider when you're choosing where to run your long run is terrain. Terrain matters. Rolling hills are actually beneficial for the standard long run because they vary the muscular demand and build strength naturally along the way. You don't want to be going up any steep mountains or anything, but a few hills along your route can be a great training stimulus. Now, if you're doing something very long, like 20 miles or more, you might want flatter terrain just to manage the total stress that you're putting on your body. Use your judgment and vary your route from week to week. Once you're going beyond 90 minutes or so, the long run becomes a great opportunity to practice your fueling strategy. So if you're running a longer race like a marathon or even a half marathon, you're probably going to need nutrition during the race, and you don't want to be doing anything new on race day. The last thing we want is to experiment with some new gel or electrolyte drink or something that we've never tried before and find that it's not a match for our gut, right? So whatever you plan to use on race day, whether that's something you're going to buy and bring yourself, or whether it's something that's provided at the aid stations, practice using that on your long runs and make sure that you're getting your body used to processing that specific fuel source while you're running. And again, I'd recommend starting to experiment with this as soon as your long runs are about 90 minutes or longer. Finally, respect recovery. The long run is your biggest training stress of the week, so plan an easy day or a rest day afterward. You don't want to stack hard workouts back to back. Now, the approach that I just described was largely established by Arthur Lydiard, the legendary New Zealand coach who really revolutionized distance training in the 1960s. His philosophy was beautifully simple. Sustained aerobic effort over time builds the foundation for everything else. What distinguished Lydiard's approach was his emphasis on duration and terrain. He had his runners regularly go out for 2 to 3 hour long runs, not once in a while, but consistently throughout their base building phases. And he preferred hilly routes. The hills provided natural strength work without the high impact of faster running, and the varied terrain reduced some of that mental monotony of very long runs. Lydiard understood something that many runners still miss today. You can't rush aerobic development. It takes time. Those cellular adaptations we talked about, the mitochondria, the capillaries, the metabolic efficiency, they don't happen from 1 or 2 long runs. They develop from weeks and months of sustained aerobic training. That's why he prioritized the long, steady run as the cornerstone of his system. During base building phases, this is where you should spend most of your long run efforts. It's low risk, high reward. You're building the foundation that everything else sits on. The faster, more specific work comes later once you have the aerobic base to support it. Next, I want to talk about the Squires approach, which is a long run with surges. Bill Squires was the coach of the Greater Boston Track Club, and he guided some of the best American marathoners of the 1970s and 80s. His long-run strategy added an interesting twist: surges. In a Squires-style long run, you're running at your normal, easy pace for most of the run, but every 10 minutes or so, you throw in a surge. These surges can vary in length and intensity. Sometimes it's just 30 seconds of slightly faster running. Other times it might be a full 10-minute pickup where you're running closer to marathon pace or even a little bit faster. So why do this? 2 reasons. First, it teaches you to change gears during a run. Race conditions are rarely perfectly even. You might need to surge up a hill or respond to a move from a competitor or even just push through a rough patch. Training your body to accelerate and then settle back down is a really valuable practice. Second, surges fight boredom. Long runs can be mentally challenging, and having these little bursts of faster running can really help to break up the monotony. Instead of focusing on all the mileage you're putting in or, thinking about when the run's going to be over with, you're constantly thinking about the next surge, which keeps you engaged and makes the time pass more quickly. The key to doing surge runs well is not going too hard on the pickups. These aren't sprints. You're just shifting up a gear, running with more purpose for a little bit, and then settling back into your easy rhythm. If the surges leave you gasping or compromise the second half of your run, you're going too hard. I like to program surge runs once or twice in a training cycle, usually in the middle of a build when runners have good fitness by that point, but they might be feeling a little bit stale. They're a nice change of pace that delivers solid aerobic benefits while also adding some variety and again helping to teach those mid-run pace changes. Next up, we have the Rosa method, the fast finish long run. Gabriele Rosa is an Italian coach who's worked with some of the most successful marathon runners in the world, particularly from Kenya. And his fast finish long run has become increasingly popular among competitive marathoners, and for good reason. Here's how it works. You run the first portion of your long run at your normal, easy pace. But in the final section of the run, maybe the last 4 to 8 miles, you start picking up the pace. Not dramatically, but gradually building. By the last few miles, you're running at or even slightly faster than your goal marathon pace. In some versions of this workout, you finish the last 10 minutes at the fastest pace that you can sustain. This is tough. You're essentially running a tempo effort when you're already fatigued from all those earlier miles. But that's exactly the point. This workout teaches you to run fast on tired legs, which is exactly what you'll need to do in the final miles of a marathon. The fast finish long run addresses one of the biggest problems distance runners face: the late race fade. We've all seen it. Many of us have experienced it. You're cruising along, feeling great through 20 miles or so, and then suddenly the wheels come off and you're struggling just to maintain a jog. This happens because your body runs out of glycogen, your muscles accumulate fatigue, and you haven't trained yourself to push through that depleted state. A fast finish long run teaches you to overcome that fade. You're practicing running at pace when you're tired. You're teaching your body that there's still gas in the tank, even when you feel empty. And you're also building that mental toughness to push through discomfort. Now, a word of caution, this workout is demanding, and you shouldn't do it too often. I recommend alternating fast finish long runs with standard easy long runs. Maybe you do one fast finish every 2 or 3 weeks during your marathon-specific training block. And you also don't want to do these when you're already tired from other hard training. They need to be scheduled strategically. Also, I wouldn't recommend attempting a fast finish until you've built a solid base of standard long runs. Fast finishes are an advanced type of workout that requires good fitness and body awareness in order to execute them properly and not take too much of a beating from them. Next up is the Fitzinger strategy, which is based around marathon pace segments. So Pete Fitzinger was an Olympic marathoner, and he's now one of the most respected marathon coaches in the world. His approach to long runs incorporates marathon pace running right into the middle of the workout. Here's the structure. Let's say you're doing an 18-mile long run. You might run the first 3 miles easy as a warm-up, and then run 12 miles at your goal marathon pace, and then finish with 3 more easy miles as a cool down. You're essentially doing a marathon pace tempo run, but it's embedded within your long run. So you're running that pace on legs that are already somewhat fatigued. This is incredibly specific training for marathon racing. One of the biggest challenges in marathon training is getting comfortable with your goal pace. You need to know what it feels like, both physically and mentally. You need to calibrate your effort so you can sustain it for 26.2 miles. And you need to practice maintaining that pace as you're accumulating fatigue. Fitzinger's marathon pace long runs check all of these boxes. They give you confidence that your goal pace is achievable. They teach you how to sustain rhythm and form at that pace. And they provide valuable feedback about whether your goal is realistic or whether it needs some adjustment. These workouts are best for runners targeting faster marathon times, typically sub 3:30. If you're running a slower marathon pace, your easy long run pace and your marathon race pace might be too close together to make this workout effective. But if you're a more advanced marathoner, this can be a really powerful tool. Like the fast finish long run, the marathon pace long run is demanding and should be used sparingly and strategically. The key with this run is starting conservatively. You don't want to hammer the marathon pace segment. You should be able to complete the entire prescribed distance at pace and still finish feeling like you could have kept it going. If you're blowing up in the middle miles, you've either gone out too hard or you're just not quite ready for that pace yet. So now you know 3 different specialized approaches to the long run, plus the standard long run that forms the foundation. Now, how do you decide which one to use and when? Your decision should be based on where you are in your training cycle and what your specific goals are. During base building phases, the standard long run should dominate your training. This is when you're focused on building aerobic capacity and adding volume. You want consistent, sustainable stress that maximizes endurance development without excessive fatigue. You can't rush this phase. Save the specialized variations for later. As you move into more race-specific training blocks, you can start to incorporate the specialized long runs. If you're training for a marathon and you want to work on finishing strong, work in some fast finish long runs. Maybe do one every 2 or 3 weeks, alternating with standard long runs. If you're looking to build confidence with your marathon pace, you can work in a Fitzinger-style marathon pace long run. These are especially valuable about 4 to 6 weeks out from your goal race as you're starting to reach peak fitness and you need that final confirmation that your goal pace is actually achievable. And if you're feeling mentally stale and you want to work on pace changes for tactical racing, throw in a surge run. These are great for keeping your training fresh and adding some variety without the recovery cost of a true hard workout. You don't have to stick to just one approach throughout your entire training cycle. In fact, variety can be really beneficial. You might do 3 or 4 standard long runs, followed by a surge run, then back to standard, then a fast finish or a marathon pace run. Mix it up based on how you're feeling and what you need at that point in your training cycle. All right, let's bring everything together. The long run is your most important workout because nothing else builds endurance like sustained time on your feet. It develops your aerobic system, strengthens your cardiovascular system, teaches your body to store and use fuel more efficiently, and builds the mental toughness that you need to succeed in distance running. The standard long run done at conversational pace should be your go-to workout most weeks. It's low risk and it's highly effective for building that essential aerobic foundation. But when the timing is right, don't be afraid to use some of the specialized long run strategies that we covered today. The key is being intentional about which approach you use and why. Don't just go out and run your long run on autopilot every week. Think about what you're looking to gain from the workout and structure it accordingly. Now, I know what you might be thinking. This is kind of a lot to keep track of. When do I do which type of long run? How do I program them into my training cycle? That is exactly why I'm building the VMAX training app. Little plug here. All of these methods, the standard long runs, the surges, the fast finishes, the marathon pace segments, these are all incorporated into our training plans at the right time based on your goals and where you are in your training. You don't even have to think about it. The VMAX app is launching soon with truly personalized, coach-written training plans. These are not AI. These are not computer-generated. All of the plans have been written in advance for every possible combination of responses to our onboarding questions. This is just as tedious as it sounds. I've actually been working on this for close to 3 years now. But I think it's worth all the extra work to be able to offer a truly personalized experience for every individual runner who wants to use the app. So if you want to be notified when we launch, go to vmax.run, drop your email, and I'll be sure to let you know as soon as it's ready. Thank you so much for spending some time with me here on the VMAX Running Podcast. Really appreciate you being here. If you did find this episode valuable, it would mean the world to me if you could leave a nice rating or review on the podcast platform of your choice. And if you haven't already, subscribe wherever you get your podcasts for more science-based training advice just like this. Thanks again for listening. Bye-bye.